So how to prevent muscle loss while cutting? We need to understand that it comes down to muscle protein synthesis, right? So when we're in an energy deficit, so a calorie deficit, and we know that we need a calorie deficit in order to lose fat. Now when we're in this resting muscle protein synthesis, and this is very important to know, because if you don't get this right, then you're going to be losing a lot of muscle mass. The bigger the calorie deficit, the bigger the drop in resting muscle protein synthesis. And we know that muscle protein synthesis is real important in order to build new muscle tissue and also maintain it. So for example, if a resting muscle protein synthesis rate dropped by, let's say, 50%, likelihood of us losing muscle is big. So what it comes down to is your energy deficit. How big is your calorie deficit? In my opinion, I recommend don't go any larger than, let's say, 1,000 calories, right? Anything more than that, you're gonna lose muscle mass, most certainly. Now, also really important to note that someone with leaner body type, like someone that's like 10% body fat, needs to have a smaller calorie deficit, therefore they can maintain a lean muscle mass. Therefore you see bodybuilders all the time, and this relates to real life, they start off with a calorie deficit maybe a bit larger, than as they get closer and closer to the competition, most of the time it narrows lower and lower and lower in order to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. So that's step number one. Keep your calorie deficit relatively small if your main aim is to maintain the most amount of muscle mass as possible. Now, one thing I have to mention is that in order to increase your resting muscle protein synthesis, which is very important here, here's what you got to do. Increase your protein intake. Now this is going to be a dose relationship response, or whichever we're going to call it, basically up to a point. Now I recommend about 1 gram per pound of body weight. It's probably a good measure. The higher calorie deficit, the more protein intake I'd recommend as well. And second of all, the second thing that spikes your muscle protein synthesis rate is weight training. Therefore, when you go to hit the weights or when you go to diet, you must do weight training. Now, how much volume? And this is very, very important, because if you do not a lot of volume, then muscle loss is going to occur. So the amount of volume that I recommend for you is probably about 12 to 14 sets per muscle group per week. This will be a good start for most people. Don't go anything lower than that, because then it might be a, let's say, a recipe for muscle loss. So that's that. Now, we got the energy deficit and the weight training out the way. Second of all is cardio. A lot of people were obsessed over cardio, and in fact, I actually thought that playing sport like for 2 hours is going to burn my muscle and stuff like that. But again, what it comes down to is that resting muscle protein synthesis rate. How big is your calorie deficit as well? That's the main object now, or the main aim. Now what I must say is that there's no best cardio, right? High intensity interval training is not going to just burn loads of fat and always low intensity state. Let me explain. High intensity state might actually impact your recovery. So if you're training 5 to 6 times a week and you're in, let's say, a 700 calorie deficit, because you're having fewer calories, and we know that less calories means less muscle protein synthesis, as I keep harping on about it, which also means it's going to affect our ability to recover faster as well. So that's that. And what else is there to say, man? LISS, low intensity state, I probably recommend that for most people, especially if your energy deficit is very, very large, because you want to keep or don't do any cardio that interferes with recovery, right? So maybe walking on an incline, walking, maybe the cross trainer, something like that. You want to really reduce that impact. So that's that. That's all you really need to know. Remember, keep an energy deficit relatively small. If you're going to do a mini cut, maybe keep it let's say 700 calories, again depending on your body fat percentage and how much fat you got to lose. Also, maybe try to aim for about 1% of body weight loss per week at the maximum rate. If you really want to start like maintaining every little pound of muscle that you got, start off with 0.7% of your body weight per week. Now again, you probably want to shoot low for that if you're doing like an 8 to 12 week cut, like the mega cut. So anyway, that's that. Cardio, energy deficit, and make sure you do weight training. Really increase or keep your volume to your MEV, your minimum effective volume, like I always say. Now, if you want to know more about how to maintain muscle, build muscle, lose fat, I'm going to give you a little shout out. No, I'm not going to give you a shout out. I want to tell you what videos to watch. I'm just chatting shit now. What am I actually talking about? Yeah, if you want to know like more about this stuff, I don't know what I was talking about, my head just went somewhere else, you can click on these videos right here that's going to pop up on your screen, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to know more about these science explained videos. So that's that, man. I'm not even going to cut this stuff because I keep it raw. Let's get it. Stay positive, stay smiling, and I'll see you in the next one.